Stephen Squibbs presents this month's board certification tip.
And hello, we have one more board certification tip of the month. We have with us board certified attorney, Chris Rumbold. Chris, congratulations on being one of the 6 people that passed the 22 board cert exam.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
So we love to pick your head on pick your brain, and we will try not to get too dirty.
Sure.
And we love to hear like how you approach the exam, and now that you've passed it. Only 6 people out of 20 something passed it, and there's a lot of criticism that the tests may be too hard. Now that you're on the side of passing it, do you think that the test is fair and representative of what a board certified attorney should know? Or do you agree with the criticism that it's just too crazy hard and designed to make people fail?
No, I don't think it's too hard and designed to make people fail. I did take it twice. So I took it last year as well. I think one of the difficulties with the exam, at least for me, is you do all that studying up to taking the exam and you've got all this great information in your head. And then you have a very limited amount of time to actually be able to translate that into the written word. So when I took it last year, so the structure of the exam, I'm sure everybody knows, is multiple choice essay, multiple choice essay, short answer essay, and then 2 essays. So I did fine on the first, second, and fourth sections, but on the third section, I had real problems with time management. So I wrote 1 sentence for the essay question, and that obviously was not sufficient. So when I took it the second time, I spent much less time on the short answer, and it was tough to get it done in time, but I did get it finished in time. And I think that probably made all the difference.
I think everyone we talk to has issues with the timing, even if they're, fast test takers. I think most people will run out of time, especially with the big essays, and that freaks you out.
Yeah, so the second time I took it, I finished all sections on time, but I was much more cognizant of my time management the second time. I think it was also probably super helpful that I reviewed my exam from the first time with Julia Wida, and we spent quite a bit of time going through it, reviewing all of my answers, looking at the way in which the question translated or didn't translate to the answer that I had. And I think that was super helpful as well. I just felt like in a much different place the second time I took it.
And when you reviewed the exam, could you see why you didn't pass the first time around? Was it obvious? Or
so yes. So the short answer, you have all this, or at least you have all this information in your head, right? And you want to get it down on the paper. So short answer means 2 sentences. It does not mean like 3 enormous paragraphs, which was why I ended up having the time to write 1 sentence on the essay that went with the short answer. So the second time I took it, it was 2 sentences max, 2 minutes per short answer question max. And then I had plenty of time to do the essay question that was associated with it.
So just pure budgeting and being familiar with the format from the year before.
Yeah. And so I went to the tips and nibbles and I heard them say short answer. I just didn't really know what that meant until I went back through and reviewed the exam.
Yeah, they're not looking for you to show how smart you are. They just want same thing with essays. When I graded the test, I didn't like narrative answers. I was fine with a bulleted answer, as long as it conveyed the information. So, but I took the test back when you had the option to use Blue Book. So I actually hand wrote my test. For your past year's test, did you take it remotely where they were
Yes.
observing
Yeah,
you in a
both
fishbowl?
times I took it remotely.
All right. Would you do
And
that
that was
again
okay.
if you had the option, or would you do it live?
Um, I, th- I think I probably would have been more comfortable live. I mean, I took the bar exam on, I think the last year it was offered written. And so, yeah, like blue books, I'm all about filling them out, handwriting out my answers. So it was a bit of a learning curve. And, I had taken the exam the year before, but I had forgotten, just what I needed to do in order to get to the part where I could actually start answering the first question. But I don't know. I mean, I think it was fine.
So they tell you the areas, the
Yes.
core and subcore. So there's really no surprises. Everything within those things are probably going to be tested.
Right.
Once they give you the areas that they're testing on, what did you do to memorize or learn or master that material?
So having taken it before, I had an idea about how much time I wanted to set aside. So I set aside between January 1st and the exam 300 hours. And I reviewed the green books. I went through all of the opinions for the last 4 years. I went through all of those 3 times. I went through all of the rules, highlighted, tabbed, all of the statutes highlighted and tabbed. And then when it came down to the last week or 2 before the exam, I busted out the red books and went through them. I know a lot of people do outlines. I'm not a fan of outlines. I do much better with a highlighter in my hand and just reading. So that was what I did. The year before, I spent about 100 hours, and I knew that wasn't enough when I was taking the exam.
So after you had 300 hours in your belt and you're going to sit down for the exam, did you feel comfortable you were going to be one of the 6, or one of the few that passed it?
No, not at all. I felt like I had much more mastery of the topics, a much better understanding of how the test takers wanted me to present the information that I knew. But if I had been asked different essay questions, I mean, maybe I wouldn't have passed. I don't know.
I briefed a Supreme Court issue to the Supreme Court that was on my test. So that's how I brag that I passed mine, because I had the privilege of really knowing one of the essay questions.
Yeah.
Way back when. So a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck, right place, right time. How'd you feel?
I do think that is part of it.
How'd you feel when you got that email?
Really, really good. Although I have to say that I traditionally put a lot of pressure on myself. I am unfortunately a perfectionist, and I feel like the bar has been raised. If I would have normally spent an hour on a motion, it's now 2 hours. I want to make sure that all of the case law is in there, all of the rules are in there, everything that I know is in there. I certainly think that having that badge has caused me to be a more thoroughly researched lawyer. And I do think like it's changed my practice a little bit, at least in the manner in which I think it is acceptable for me to be prepared for a hearing. Like I do enjoy being the most prepared person in the courtroom, but now it's like exponential.
You have a whole new standard to hold yourself to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a much better way of saying it than I said it. But yeah, I am holding myself to a higher standard.
So I know you're very involved with the family law section. Would you ever consider being on the board cert committee, which is a Florida bar committee?
If somebody asked me,
I think
yeah,
you do one of those committee preference forms, just like in the section, they have them for the Florida bar.
let me say it in another way. If somebody wanted me, yeah.
It's a fun committee. It's a hard committee. It
Yeah,
requires
I mean,
a whole lot of work, but
right now I'm treasurer, so I've got a couple years in the
you
family
got a
law
path.
section to
they got you busy for at least 6 years.
yeah. But you know, I did think that it would be really fascinating to grade the exams. Just
That's the
because
smartest I've ever been was when I was on the board cert committee, not
I'm
studying for the
sure,
test.
I'm sure, you know, and it's funny now because like I'm sure 20 years ago when I took the bar exam, I had these same thoughts, right? So like after the first time I took the exam, every single case I read, I was like, this is what they're going to ask me. This is going to be the issue. I know they're going to test on this. And I had all these furious case notes everywhere. And now it's kind of similar, right? So I keep thinking if I was grading the exam, I would ask about this case or this issue. And every time I see a quick rule change, like we recently had rule changes, I'm like, I know they're testing on that.
They usually do. They usually do these weird little changes in the law. And if you read Florida Law Weekly every week, you notice those pattern changes.
Right.
And,
right.
Those are usually the things that end up on the test.
Yeah.
Any other?
No, it's good stuff. I mean, you know, professionally, I haven't really seen a change, but it's been what, like a month and a half.
Well, I saw your website's changed. It looks really
yes,
nice.
but that's kind of the extent of it. You know, and my letterhead changed too. But I mean, other than that, no. And you know, I'm hopeful that with this distinction, you know, I really enjoy speaking in public. I really enjoy writing. I feel like this is going to be a catalyst to more of that, or at least I hope it will be.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was a baby lawyer. So like when I passed, no one knew me, but as soon as I passed, you know, they knew that I had a skill set. So
yeah,
I didn't have that little freshman surprise you with everybody. But you took it after 20 years. Did you have did that scare you that, you know, that part in your career, doing such a challenging thing? I mean,
so you know, family law section service for me, it didn't really start until I had moved to Gladstone and Weissman, which is probably a decade ago now. And then after I left and established my own firm, it took a while to get the trial credits. And I had qualified to sit for the exam, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but I just didn't have the time with opening a new practice. And now I think maybe I would have had the time if I had prioritized it. Because as a sole practitioner, I somehow managed to find those golden 300 hours to study. I mean, in the back of my head, it's like, dude, you're in your 40s. Can you really sit for an exam like this? And I did, and I passed. So I guess that's good.
Well, I think there are people out there that don't take it just because they've been out there a while and they don't, you know, they know the passage rate is so low and they're unwilling to deal with that potential failure. And it takes a whole lot of courage to face that. And I can't even imagine what you're feeling now that you've passed it. So kudos.
What I'm feeling is, what's the next exam I'm going to take?
I hope never to take an exam again.
well, I'd like to become a member of the academy. So you know, that's going to be an exam, and I've already started my application for that. I just have to finish it. So we'll see.
Any other tips, Chris, that you could give our listeners that are interested in taking and sitting this for this incredible epic exam?
Yeah, just like give yourself a break. Be in a position where you know you can set aside the time. Set aside the time. And if you miss a day, you pick up the next day. You know, I really had to be kind to myself during this. It took me away from my business, my dogs, my husband, you know, and it required a real commitment. But I'm in such a different place now, just with confidence that passing gave me, and I think even if I hadn't passed, just the sheer breadth of knowledge that I had to quasi commit to memory. Let's remember, I'm in my 40s. My memory is not what it used to be. But like it's just such a great experience. And I felt this way after the last time I took it. I was like, this is a fantastic experience. Everybody should, if you're willing to try, you should really try.
Yeah, why not be a master at what you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Simple. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time, your tips.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate the offer, Eddie.
Well, we appreciate you. And if we can ever return the favor, we'd be happy to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really appreciate it.